doesn't need much of an introduction. He's the president of the largest online travel platform for tours, activities, and attractions. Please welcome the president of TripAdvisor Experiences, Dermot Halpin. Dermot, welcome.
How are you?
So, happy to be back?
Absolutely.
Great. Super.
I saw they were feeding alligators, and I was wondering if that was the way this would go as well, but we'll see how it transpires.
Well, let's see. We have 29 minutes. We have lots of time. So, so look, first, you know so you're, I think, one of two public companies. Well, I guess with Groupon it would be three. So there's TripAdvisor, Groupon, and Veltra in Japan. So three public companies that have really very big stakes within tours, activities, and attractions. And there are other public companies, but but have a bigger focus on other sectors of travel. What's been extraordinary, to see, especially with TripAdvisor, is the growth in supply, but also in revenue. So I presume there's been some bookings growth as well, although you don't release that. So I think upwards of more than 1 million listings and a growth in bookable products from, if I recall, from a few years ago, it was maybe 40 or 50,000, and now it's 250,000 or even. Could you just give us like an update on the numbers and like what's going on? Yeah, how do you do it?
So we have been, on the past couple of years, we've been on a journey, and many of the people in this room have been on the journey with us. So I want to take the opportunity to say thank you to the people who are here. The large majority of the investment in our experiences business has been in recreating the technology to allow operators to do business more seamlessly with the TripAdvisor and the Viator platforms. So, examples of that would be, there are many examples. We heard that payments is pretty important. Being paid is very important. And we rebuilt the payments infrastructure to allow, it's particularly important for smaller operators, which is a characteristic of this part of the travel industry. So we totally rebuilt that to allow smaller operators, any operator, to get very frequent payments and to do it on a cheap basis. So it's about focusing on what the needs of the marketplace are. If operators in our marketplace are not successful, we are not successful. And there are many other examples, the instant translation of your products into 17 languages and an expansion of the audience for your products. And then on the demand side, it's a constant exercise in trying to understand what the traveler mindset is and the evolution of the traveler mindset. And I think you covered this off in your opening speech yesterday. And it's to understand whether or not that's a trend in mobile or whether or not it's a trend in a particular kind of product that they're buying or whatever is on the mind of the traveler. And in our part of the travel industry, a lot of it is about flexibility, because you have this huge statistic that 80% of this stuff is still booked offline and it's booked in destination. So we're trying to understand that and respond with a great product. So, given that it's a very in-destination oriented kind of consumption use case, what we did is we completely transformed. When we have a signal that somebody is in destination, we completely transformed the. Thank you.
Oh, we have him.
Do I have to repeat myself? How far back do I have to go? So what I was explaining was, it sounds very loud now, what I was explaining was about the changes that we've made to both sides of the marketplace. We've made changes for operators to make it seamless for you guys to do your business on our platform. If you do good business, we will do good business. And then what's, I think, important kind of information to impart, if I have information that's useful for the people here, it's that we are very focused on what travelers want and responding to what travelers want. And it's pretty clear in experiences that they want flexibility. They're booking last minute, they're booking in destination, they're booking offline. So we have to find out what those trends are and respond to them. And on the app, for example, we do know when a user allows us to know that they're in destination. We completely transformed the experience that the traveler has when we know that they're in destination. You present different products which we know are available, etc. You don't have to deal with many other kind of geographical use cases. So there's lots of stuff that you can do to make it a better experience. So that's kind of the supply side, and there's a demand side to the marketplace. As you know, we were a little bit controversial last year. We bought a company called Boken.
I don't remember.
You didn't hear about that?
Yeah.
So we bought Boken last year because we were also responding to the trend that, or the observation that most of this part of the industry was not yet online. So we wanted to help kind of catalyze the trend online by having a high quality, low cost offer whereby it would be easy for operators to manage their businesses and to distribute online. Because if you're not able to distribute online, we're not able to sell you. So that's very much in our interest too. So it's a win-win. And Boken has been going very well over the past year. Huge growth outside of, we bought it was an Icelandic company, massive growth globally. We've been building up the customer service side and the global footprint of Boken. We changed the pricing recently, and in line with.
Okay, you're going after like 4 of my questions before I can even ask them. So let me just step back for a sec, because I want to pull a few of these things apart. So for example, I mean, clearly the push to last minute flexibility, and you have. You tried to push the cancellation window to make it as short as possible, and so that people can book last minute, and driving people, operators, to make things bookable last minute. That is a challenge there are certain operator segments where that can be a challenge on the supply side for them if they've got to contract their suppliers. So how do you think about when you've got to make a decision where there's the demand side interest, there's the travelers, and they want X, but then you've got the operator side, and your operator community is saying, well, X doesn't work for us, we need Y. Like how do you navigate that process at TripAdvisor?
Yeah, so we're aware that changes that we make can be impactful on both sides of that marketplace. So we're very thoughtful about it. In the case of things like last minute booking, we don't feel that we are the kind of judge and jury about this stuff. We feel that we're more of a mirror of what's going on. And I do acknowledge that for some operators with some products, it is difficult to deliver on a 24-hour cancellation. But I imagine if I was to ask who doesn't have a mobile phone in the audience, I'm not going to see an awful lot of hands going up. And you'll know from your own behavior on the phone and your own behavior online that you want things instantaneously and you want them at the last minute. And this is just an inexorable trend. And we have the choice of either responding to it or somebody else will respond to it. So it's not that TripAdvisor comes and imposes rules on an industry. I think our job is to try and understand what our collective customers' desires are, and to reflect that in the product and to reflect that in policies that we have, So
is it possible, in some cases, like, can you make exceptions to policies, with certain operators? I think another example, and I think we had a question from an operator come in about, say, the reserve now, pay later feature, where can that be an opt-in feature? And can I, as an operator, say, well, that is an interesting feature, but maybe it's not right for me, and I'm willing to accept maybe lower visibility on the platform and fewer bookings from TripAdvisor as a result. Is that possible?
Well, if you just take those things separately, 24-hour cancellation, it's not obligatory that you follow the policy. I would highly suggest that people, do evolve their businesses to respond to that, because if you don't, somebody else will. This is TripAdvisor pointing something out to you rather than TripAdvisor telling you what to do. This is a market trend.
And then just on the consumer demand trend, then, I mean, so that last minute kind of close-in window, that's a fast-growing.
The fastest booking, the 0 to 48 hours is the fastest growing booking window for our business. Okay. So there's clearly a trend there. And then if you look at something like Reserve Now, Pay Later, Reserve Now, Pay Later is, again, it's something that has worked in other parts of the travel industry. We have it in our rentals business. and it increases conversion. That means that people who are ready with their credit card out.
But it's also going to increase cancellations.
Well, we'll see. That maybe, and we'll see to what degree it increases cancellations, and if that becomes problematic, we'll have to adapt. If it's problematic at a large scale for the operator community, well, then it's not going to work for us at a large scale. But I think that change is often feared in these things, and actually there are lots of analogs. We were talking about Booking.com as an analog to this earlier. This is not something new, and it's very highly improbable that it will be abused. Most people just want to make the booking, and they sometimes live paycheck to paycheck, and this takes one more barrier out of the way to allow them to convert, and ultimately for somebody here to get the booking.
So you had talked about Boken, which I definitely want to come back to, but kind of first, you're also indicated, so some of these changes you're making, you feel, well, if you don't, others will. So I mean, you're in a competitive marketplace. So I'd like to just kind of run through with you some of the big competitors to TripAdvisor. So first, of course, there was the news yesterday with Airbnb investing in tickets. How big of a competitive threat do you see Airbnb, and what's your take on their investment in tickets?
Look, I think the macro opportunity here is not necessarily about this competitor or that competitor. The thing that we have to really compete with is a consumer trend to book in destination and at last minute, and to try and get them to book in advance and online. That's the thing that worries us most, rather than which action by which competitor is going to impact. We also think of those things, but in the hierarchy of needs, it's much more the former. And I think, what I think of that announcement yesterday, for example, is first off, I think Luke and the tickets team should be given a lot of kudos for pulling off something like that. It's not easy to raise that kind of money. And I think that it's interesting. It raises questions about, I look at a $60 million raise, which used to be a lot of money, and I put that in the context of the hundreds of millions of dollars that has been raised by others in the past kind of 8-12 months.
Klook and
Get Your Guide with SoftBank, hundreds of millions of dollars, and you wonder, how does $60 million compete with those hundreds of millions of dollars? And that, I presume, will become apparent to us as that competition evolves over time. And then I look, at a macro level, those inventory sets, I don't know what the ultimate plan is for those two parties, but those inventory sets look quite complementary based on where Airbnb have been aggregating supply and where the tickets team have been aggregating supply. So, there are many questions that remain open on that, but it's also, even if the hundreds of millions is quite a thing to stare at, it's not a surprise that there's a large amount of investment. This is the fastest growing part of the travel industry, and there has been billions and billions of dollars. I think I read a stat recently that it was in the past 10 years, there's been $20 billion invested in online travel, which is a staggering sum of money.
Actually, since 2017, nearly $2 billion just in this sector alone.
There you go. From the horse's mouth, apparently.
Well,
yeah.
So what about Google? So there's been some news about Google. So the end of Touring Bird, but apparently the team is now being folded into Google Travel. There was an article saying that means it's kind of the demise, but my sense is that if they're being folded into the team, that Google Travel has got some big plans. And then in addition, you have this Reserve with Google initiative, which TripAdvisor is a participant in, but also, Google could become a significant kind of competitor to you in this space. How are you navigating that?
How do I parse that? So Google is a fact of our lives. It's pervasive.
And you also spend a little bit of money with them, I believe.
We're going to get there.
Okay.
So,
I will be patient.
And it's also, to a certain extent, you don't really have a choice but to play in the Google programs. I don't think what you're referring to there as some kind of, that Touring Bird being folded in is some kind of failure. It's not, absolutely not. I think that's experimentation. That's what they do. And it's likely that there was some success there if they're going to keep the program going. So, so Google, I don't feel that any of us really have a choice but to play in the Google programs. We are on Reserve with Google, and they're making choices about who participates there. But the thing that's, there is a kind of a general, what would you say, a social narrative about Google and others and big tech. And what is the role of big tech in all of our lives? What is the role of Google? And whether or not these are always good actors. And we've seen in the US, you have the DOJ is opening investigations into Google and others, and Amazon and Facebook, etc. And you've seen that in Europe, the European Union has already taken action, and it has deemed actions by Google to be abuse of dominance, or whatever way they put that. So, so I think that Google, Google has form in travel and will continue to evolve its presence in travel. It's, it's in flights and meta search, and for flights, it's in hotels, and unsurprisingly now in the hottest part of travel, it's getting interested in how it can participate in that marketplace.
If they kind of step in and kind of go down that path of building a true kind of tours, activities, kind of booking kind of path like they've done with flights and hotels, how would you kind of treat that strategically? Would you continue to participate like you do in reserve? How would
this
is a chess game. I mean, you're playing a few moves ahead, right?
It's like a chess game where somebody owns the chessboard, So, so it's kind of like a chess game. We will look at that like everything, like every other opportunity, and at some point you have to say, well, if I don't do it, somebody else will do it, right? And that comes back to that conversation about what choice do you really have when somebody has such market power. I think we were talking about it previously, if you were to ask me about what I see, the money we spend on Google, maybe seen as a Google tax on participation in online commerce. And, 10 years ago, I might have had a different answer about whether or not I thought that was a justifiable tax, because to a certain extent, they've created the infrastructure to facilitate a lot of commerce. But I feel like the debt has been paid off. I'm not sure we should still be taxed to that degree, but yeah.
So I want to come back, and by the way, we can open up to audience questions, but I want to come back to Boken.
Me too.
Okay. Well, I might want to talk about different things.
Okay.
So first, you acquired Boken, and to me the acquisition, that was interesting, but what was to me most provocative was the pricing announcement around it, which I think was like basically a penny a booking, or
0.1%.
0.1%, yeah. But now you've changed the pricing model, so it looks a bit more like other, that kind of the commission or the consumer fee on a direct website booking. So why? I mean, some operators that said, oh, it's kind of like a little bait and switch. I mean, so what's the rationale for that?
I mean, the idea in the pricing strategy is not to provoke. The idea is it's part of a broader strategy. And the broader strategy for Boken was what I was saying earlier, is that we see that many of the participants, the majority of the participants in the experiences industry are not online. And we feel that we can lead a trend to bring the industry online. And the idea was to get this solution, a high quality solution, and a low-cost solution in that order, and to make it as pervasive as possible, because if people here are not bookable online, we can't sell them. So that's in our interest. So that was the strategy. Part of that was to say, hey, when we went out early on, was to say there's a very, very interesting price point for people. And it actually isn't the main thing that people talk about, because you're talking about that you're going to be the software upon which they run their business. So there are definitely other considerations that they're taking into account, rather than whether it's 0.1% or the current pricing structure, which is where we will only charge on direct bookings. So in fact, Boken can be free still, like many other software products, depending on which parts of the suite of functionality you use. Okay. So we only charge the 2.9%, which again is the lowest.
But it doesn't include the credit card fee. So if you add the credit card fee in, then it would be more, because other systems I think have a higher they have a higher rate, but they include the credit card fee.
I don't know exactly the pricing structure for all of the competition, but I know that we are currently the lowest on a comparable basis.
So I know we have an audience question, but I just one quick follow-up on Boken, because so you made a statement at the conference last year that there would be preferencing within the sort order in TripAdvisor for Boken users, or that was kind of the takeaway. So
that was the takeaway. That's what you took away. That's not what I said.
Okay, so I'd really love to get kind of clarification. So if I am a Boken user, am I preferenced in the sort order? And if I am a Fair Harbor or a ResD user, am I depreferenced?
No, the thing that matters in what we call the pop index on TripAdvisor is determined by the quantity, the quality, and the recency of your reviews. And the stature of TripAdvisor in the eyes of the consumer depends on the integrity of that sort order. So there is no other way to get preferenced in the sort order besides operating a good experience, which I don't think I have to tell anybody here to do. That's what people are doing day to day, and getting it reviewed by your customers and making sure those reviews land on TripAdvisor. And in that way, over time, the sort order, the pop index will take care of it. There is no preference in the pop index for Boken clients or for any other clients. What we did do was we offered incremental marketing placement called sponsored placement, and it's clearly marked as an ad. And that was the kind of the preferencing which we offered. We also offered it to other operators at the time. So
we have a question from the audience.
Yeah, hi, Chris Kontarich at Deutsche Bank. Just curious, as we think about the relationship between TripAdvisor proper and Viator, at this point, why is TripAdvisor still smaller than Viator, given the relative disparity between traffic and review content that you have on there versus Viator? Thanks.
Why is TripAdvisor small? Well, the growth, there are two different things. You can think of what we have in the marketplace. We have a supply side where operators come and present their wares, and then we have shop windows. And we have a TripAdvisor shop window, we have a Viator shop window, and we have third parties. It's a very healthy part of the business where we supply inventory to others. And we don't break out any of the composition of who is participating in, or which of those shop windows is participating. But I can tell you that the fastest growing part has been TripAdvisor. Yeah.
Just so back on Boken. So we had a fun discussion this morning with some other reservation systems.
I heard.
Is there going to be more consolidation? I mean, I'm as a public company, you're not going to say if you're going to acquire more companies, but if you look out at the landscape, there's so many reservation systems.
Yeah. I mean, I think the answer to it is in research that you've produced, right? So you've got, was it 120 softwares or 150 softwares and 120 OTAs?
Yeah.
So I think the answer there about future consolidation is, I think that is the answer in future consolidation. It's very likely that there will be consolidation. To who will be the consolidator in what circumstance depends on what kind of assets people are building. So, yeah.
We have another question from the audience.
Hi, I'm Lauren Shannon from Arigato Japan Food Tours. Hi again, Douglas. Thank you for coming here today and explaining a lot of your thinking. One thing I like about TripAdvisor, but is very stressful for operators, is that you are responding to the pressure in the marketplace by lots of iteration on the platform, but with very little warning or help available for us to respond back as operators. So we will wake up one day and our listing will look totally different than it did 24 hours earlier. Can you address that for us? Because it's extremely stressful. You basically outsource a lot of the labor for the upload and the work in your system, but then you guys make all the decisions about how it looks at the end of the day.
Well, the first thing, I apologize for the stress. I don't think that we get everything right. I do think you're correct to say that the environment, the online environment, is one where there is a lot of experimentation and fast pace. It's not our intention that following such a fast pace would create churn. We do have or stress on the part of the people who are participating with us. So we do have, over time as we're building the business, we're getting better at this, I think. We take it very seriously, and we've invested just on the supplier support side. We have tripled the number of people who are involved in supplier support over the past year. And NPS scores are going up. And I know that doesn't help if you're the person who's on the receiving end of this, right? So, but I can look from an average perspective, things are getting better. From an individual operator's perspective, if we do things, and we've done things in the past, which I think we could have thought out in a more considered way, I'm hoping that they get less and less over time. And that includes, just better communication. And I think that we spent the past couple of years rebuilding the technology to make it easier for operators, and we've been doing a lot of, everything we're doing is trying to make life easier for you guys to actually do your business on our platform to the largest extent.
Here we have another question from the audience.
Oh, hi, I am Diana from Ecuador. I always wonder, for example, as a supplier, for me, is really when you have a bad review and you want to report it, then it takes a lot of time, analytics and everything. But for example, my competitors, they have bad reviews and then the client erased it. So then I realized that they get in touch with the client and they asked them to erase it and make a full refund. So then it's I am working with you 7 years, and I never thought about it because I think that good reviews and bad reviews are good because people have to know everything, and nobody is 100% happy because the weather is bad or whatever. So I don't know, it's for a customer, it's really easy erasing bad reviews. Have you thought making some analytics for that? Because as I'm telling you, I did this investigation and I found out that they contact the customer and make a full refund and give a free tour. But it's unfair because
I'm sorry, I'm just going to jump in. So I think, and I have a number of questions as well, but so really concerned about kind of review authenticity and what happens with concerns with bad reviews. And so could you address kind of the review policy kind of broadly?
Yeah, I mean, in the past month, we released a report on review transparency.
Could you just hold the mic? Yep.
In the last month, we've released a report on how we deal with reviews on the site and the efforts that we put into dealing with fake reviews and other complaints. So what we found was that of all reviews, and you can read it in the report, it's available to download, 2% were identified as being fake, and 73% of those didn't get onto the platform. So that's 1 million fake reviews that didn't get onto the platform. So there's a huge amount of effort. It's very, very critical for TripAdvisor that the quality of the reviews is very high. If you think that there's something that doesn't meet the standards or the guidelines on TripAdvisor, you or anybody can raise that, and we have a team that deals with that. And usually those things are reviewed on average within 6 hours. And I know that after review, 43% of those are removed. So there's a very tight policing, and there's an increasing level of resource. The algorithms to identify the fraud in the first place are getting better, et cetera. But yeah, and as it relates to kind of bad reviews, I think that travelers recognize that it nearly makes a product look more authentic when there is a range of reviews. Everybody wants to have 5 stars and perfect, but it really is about how operators engage with the reviews. And if you get a review, every review is an opportunity. You have the right to reply. So I think you should, and you can kind of celebrate what they found positive in the review and reinforce that. And then if it's a bad review, you can state your case, and you can say what we're going to do differently about that in the next time.
So I think we have time for one more audience question over here.
Hi, Dermot. My name is James Anderson from Ford Jack Storing. Thank you very much for taking some questions today. I really enjoyed your points about paying Google the tax for participating in online commerce. As a business that does, commerce online, we're subject to the same tax. And being in the travel business, we have to pay also the OTA tax. All of us are, involved in that right now. When I reached out to TripAdvisor to hopefully participate in the TripAdvisor sponsored listings program, which I would equate to AdWords, but for the travel industry on your platform, we were told you're only eligible as a Booking user. And I know that you are open to other booking platforms on TripAdvisor, but do you have any plans to change that? Because right now it does seem like a bit of a two-tier system.
Yeah, that I would say that we have a team that's outside. That is not accurate. That it's only for Booking. Originally it started as it was only for Booking, but that is not the case anymore. So I'd suggest that you could see the team outside and we can discuss that. Yeah.
Okay. So I've got a couple of, actually a number of questions that were submitted by suppliers, operators in advance, and I want to get through a couple of them that are quite important. So one is, and this is a question that actually came from many operators. So the change that you made in the listings, so that went through last year, that caused a bit of controversy. So you removed the links to the operator websites, but then you reversed the decision and brought them back, but they're still deprioritized. So there's that see more link that you have to touch before you can get the link through. So so operators have said, well, even with the result of that change, several have reported kind of a drop in direct referrals and bookings, and if they're bookable, the Viator or the TripAdvisor bookings are growing. So sales are growing, but it has hit profitability. So what do you say to those operators?
Well, there's two parts to it. One is on a case-by-case basis. I don't know what the individual circumstances are. We did experiment. We took away the contact details, and we took into account feedback from operators, and we took into account the performance on the site, and we reinstated them largely. I will say, that there is a tension here between three parties. There's the traveler, there's the operator, and then there's TripAdvisor as a business. And the traffic that people have seen to be free and theirs is actually not traffic that's free for us. We've built a platform and we've invested many, many millions of dollars over the years to build a brand and to get that traffic to come to us. So I think that's the other part of the equation that is not always represented there. So that would be if you do have problems with that, there's a team outside at the booth and we can talk on a one-to-one basis.
Okay. One other question that came in. So branding is an important. We just had a session, in fact, earlier on brand building, and every operator in the room is trying to build a brand, and they want direct bookings as well as, in some cases, third-party booking. So in general, across most OTAs, they deprioritize brand visibility. And in some cases, you do this by, I think, Lauren had mentioned, you might readjust the descriptions of the tour. I think you have a policy where the logo can't be kind of listed with the company. So what's your kind of response to the operator that's, why can't I have my brand? It's my company listing. These are my products. Why can't I have my logo there?
Well, I mean, the objective of the platforms that we run is not to promote the brands of individual operators. The objective is to create an experience whereby a traveler can come and convert as quickly as possible. That is the objective. So it is not something, I think it's absolutely right. You're right that this is not something that we promote. The brands that we are building are the TripAdvisor brand, we're building the Viator brand, and we're building our own kind of franchise. And what we will become known for is a place where we have great selection.
But say in the hotels vertical, or say in the restaurant vertical, there is more brand visibility. So why is it different there than it is for the tours and activities sectors?
There's a very different model in the difference between the hotel business and the business that we have. We have a transactional business. And transactional businesses are about conversion. And what we optimize is an experience which gets somebody from the top of a funnel to the bottom of a funnel as quickly as possible. Now, if we found that the presentation of lots of other brands was something that increased the conversion for the masses of people who come to TripAdvisor or Viator, that is likely something that we would prioritize. That is not what we find. The likelihood is that if we started to introduce other brands, it would create cognitive dissonance in the mind of the consumer as they look at this and go, wait, I came to Viator or TripAdvisor now, who is this other brand? Instead of us applying our brand and saying, here is the selection of great offers, please click through, book, and hopefully the booking will go to somebody in this room. So there are two, and the business model on the hotel side is quite different. The business model on the hotel side is, for the largest part, is meta search.
So just one then follow-up on branding. What's interesting, so say Get Your Guide has introduced kind of a branded originals product. KK Day, an OTA in Asia, is doing something similar. Could we expect something like that from TripAdvisor?
Not in the near term. You know, I think I mean, each business makes its decision about its strategy, and potentially it works for them. But I think that there's so much to be done on the platform with just becoming a better distributor of other people's products rather than becoming a tour operator competing with the people who are providing the products. So it's not imminent. You can never say never. Businesses evolve over time. But for now, I just don't think that's a priority for us.
Okay, so I always, well, a lot of my interviews, I like to wrap things up, not just on serious questions, but with a game. So I've come up with a new game.
Yes, but the games are always at the expense of the other person.
If you're not necessarily.
So.
Maybe you need to learn to play a little better. So let's see. So this game is called I Say, You Say. So I'll say a word or a phrase, and then you say the first thing that pops into your mind. And don't think about it too much. Just say the first thing. So, for example, I could say peanut butter, and you would say?
Jelly. I've been here in America for a while.
All right, so you're ready to go.
I'm ready to go.
Outstanding. Okay.
Where am I ready to go?
Tour.
Operator.
Attraction.
Provider.
Okay, we got to work on this. Experience.
TripAdvisor.
Airbnb.
Experience.
Airbnb plus tickets.
Interesting.
Amazon.
Absent.
Maybe, maybe not.
Currently.
Okay. Alexa.
Can I have a coffee? I don't know.
Uber.
Super app.
Innovation.
Difficult.
Last minute.
Valuable.
Google.
Caution.
Touring bird.
Interesting.
Facebook.
Congress. That's what comes to mind.
Reservation system.
Boken.
Boken.
Icelandic reservation system. I love this game.
Fair Harbor.
Competitor.
2.9%.
Cheapest in the market.
Dynamic pricing.
The future.
Viator.
Successful.
Get Your Guide.
SoftBank.
Klook.
SoftBank.
Commission.
Necessary.
Cocktails.
Now.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Dermot Halpin. Thank you.